She was surrounded by voices and movement, yet no one saw her, and that silence felt louder than the noise. Her name was Alara Moore, and she stood near the wall of a crowded community hall, holding a paper cup that had gone cold long ago. Around her, people laughed, talked, and moved from one group to another as if pulled by invisible strings. The room felt alive, full of sound and color, but Alara felt like she did not belong to that life. It was as if a thin glass wall stood between her and everyone else, letting her see them but never letting her be seen. Alara was an American single mother, and that title carried more weight than most people knew. It was not just about raising a child alone or paying bills on one income. It was the quiet, emotional cost, the slow fading of being noticed as a person. She was often seen only as someone passing through, never as someone worth stopping for. Over time, this became her normal, and normal can be the most dangerous place to stay. The noise in the hall reminded her of how empty she felt inside. Music played softly in the background. Chairs scraped the floor, and conversations overlapped, but none of it reached her heart. She watched people greet each other with warmth, their faces lighting up as if they mattered to someone. Alara kept her shoulders relaxed and her face calm, trained to look comfortable even when she was not. She had learned that showing need only made the loneliness sharper. Invisibility did not happen to her overnight. It was built slowly, moment by moment, through small rejections that others might not even remember. Messages unanswered, smiles not returned, invitations never offered. Each moment taught her the same lesson, that she was easy to overlook. To survive, she stopped expecting anything from anyone. Expectation, she learned, was just another word for disappointment. As the years passed, Alara began to believe that attention and kindness were for other people, not for her. She told herself it was safer this way. If you expect nothing, nothing can hurt you. This belief became a shield she carried everywhere, especially in places like this, where being unseen hurt the most. She convinced herself that she was fine standing alone, even when her heart quietly wished otherwise. Public spaces were the hardest. They were full of reminders that connection existed, just not for her. She could be surrounded by dozens of people and still feel completely alone. It was a special kind of loneliness, the kind that grows louder in crowds. At home, silence was expected, but here, silence felt like a judgment. It whispered that she did not matter enough to be noticed. Alara's thoughts drifted to her child, the one person who still looked at her like she was important. At home, she was needed, chosen, and seen, but even that came with fear. She worried that one day, even that light could fade. The world had taught her that nothing stayed forever, and she carried that fear quietly, never speaking it out loud. She shifted her weight and took a slow breath, grounding herself. She reminded herself that she was strong, that she had stayed when others left, that she had built a life from pieces that were never meant to fit together. Still, strength did not erase loneliness. It only taught her how to carry it without letting it show. Around her, the room continued to move, unaware of the woman standing just outside its warmth. Alara watched, waited, and expected nothing, just as she had trained herself to do. Yet somewhere deep inside, a small part of her still hoped, even if she pretended it did not exist. As the noise continues, a pair of small eyes begin to notice what everyone else ignores. He learned how to manage life, but never learned how to rest from it. His name was Daniel Carter, and every morning started the same way. He woke before the alarm, not because he wanted to, but because his mind never fully slept. He made breakfast, checked school bags, and reviewed the day ahead while standing in a quiet kitchen. Daniel was a single father raising his children alone, and his life moved on schedules, lists, and silent promises to never let things fall apart. Rest felt like a luxury he could not afford. Daniel believed discipline was the only thing keeping his world steady. He packed lunches with care, timed school drop-offs perfectly, and never forgot a bill. From the outside, his life looked controlled and strong. Inside, his emotions stayed locked away. Not because he did not feel them, but because he did not know where to place them. Feelings slowed him down, and slowing down scared him more than exhaustion ever could. Responsibility slowly replaced emotional openness. Daniel stopped talking about his worries, because there was no one to listen without needing him to stay strong. When his partner left years ago, he learned a hard lesson. that people leave, but duty stay. So he chose duty. He told himself that love was shown through stability, not words, and that being present physically mattered more than being open emot. Finally, to Daniel, stability was everything. A calm home, clean clothes, and full plates meant success. Connection felt risky, unpredictable, and easy to lose. He believed his children needed a solid foundation, more than a father who talked about feelings. In his mind, keeping life steady was the greatest act of love he could offer, even if it cost him parts of himself. There were moments, quiet ones, when Daniel noticed the weight of loneliness pressing in. Late nights after homework was done, when the house finally rested, he felt the silence settle heavy on his chest. He did not name it as loneliness. He called it tiredness and pushed it aside. Single parents learn quickly how to ignore their own needs because someone else always comes first. Without knowing it, Daniel and Alara were emotional mirrors of each other. Both stood strong in public spaces. Both believed they were unseen. And both had learned to expect very little from others. They carried their loneliness differently, but it lived in the same place. Neither of them believed kindness would choose them freely. They survived by assuming it never would. Daniel's children, however, lived differently. They watched more than they spoke. They noticed how their father smiled quickly but never deeply, how he listened but rarely shared. Children have a way of seeing what adults hide, and his kids felt the quiet gaps he tried to cover with routines. They understood that something was missing, even if they could not name it. Single parents like Daniel often silence their own hearts to protect their children. He believed that if he stayed strong, his children would feel safe. What he did not realize was that safety also comes from warmth, from being emotionally seen, not just provided for. His children did not need perfection. They needed presence in ways Daniel had never learned to give himself. As days passed, Daniel continued to hold life together with steady hands. He fixed what broke, planned what came next, and ignored the quiet ache inside. He believed this was what staying meant, staying when others leave, staying strong no matter the cost. Yet beneath that strength was a man who had forgotten how to be chosen, even by himself. While he focuses on control, his children notice what he overlooks. Children sense emotional pain long before it is spoken. Daniel's children did not understand the weight their father carried, but they felt it every day. They noticed how his shoulders stayed tight even when he smiled, how his voice stayed calm but distant. Children listen with more than ears. They read silence, posture, and energy the way adults read words. To them, emotions were not hidden things. They were felt things, moving quietly through rooms and settling in hearts. They learned early that silence could mean sadness, and that stillness could mean someone was tired in ways sleep could not fix. When their father sat quietly after long days, they felt the space around him change. They did not ask questions because they sensed the answers would be heavy. Instead, they watched, storing feelings the way children do, carefully and honestly without judgment. That night, in the crowded hall, the children noticed someone else. While adults moved past her without pause, the children's eyes followed Alara. They saw how she stood near the wall, how she held her cup like it was something to protect. They felt the quiet around her, the same quiet they felt around their father at home. To them, loneliness had a shape, and they recognized it immediately. Their innocence did not exaggerate the moment. They did not see her as sad or broken. They saw her as alone. There was no drama in their understanding, only empathy. Children do not analyze emotions, they respond to them. They noticed how no one spoke to her, how she looked present but distant, and something inside them shifted gently, like a door opening. Empathy, for them, was not something to explain with words. It was something to act on. A small look passed between them, the kind only siblings understand. Without planning, without asking permission, they felt pulled toward her. Kindness, to children, is simple. It does not consider status, age, or reason. It only sees need. Daniel noticed their movement and felt a quiet resistance rise inside him. He believed in boundaries, in not bothering strangers, in keeping life controlled. Emotional involvement felt messy and unsafe. His first instinct was to stop them, to pull them back into the safe circle of routine. Stability, he believed, came from staying within known lines. As he watched them, something held him still. He saw how natural their empathy was, how unafraid they were of reaching out. It reminded him of a part of himself he had buried long ago, the part that believed connection could happen without cost. He felt torn between control and trust, between what he had learned and what his children seemed to know already. The children moved closer to Alara, not with noise but with presence. One offered a small smile. Another stood beside her, comfortable in the shared silence. They did not demand attention or explanation. They simply stayed. In that moment, they became bridges, quietly linking two lonely worlds that did not know how to find each other. Alara felt it before she understood it. The weight around her shifted, the air feeling warmer, softer. She looked down and met their eyes, surprised by the gentleness there. No words were needed. Being noticed was enough. For the first time that night, she did not feel invisible. She felt chosen, even if only for a moment. Daniel watched from a distance, his heart unsettled. He saw something changing, something small but powerful. His children had seen what he had missed, felt what he had ignored. In their simple act, they challenged everything he believed about safety and control. He realized that sometimes staying means allowing change to happen. A small, unplanned choice by the children changes the direction of the night. Kindness came without explanation, and that made it impossible to refuse. Alara did not hear words first. She felt movement beside her, a quiet shift in space that did not demand anything. A small chair was pulled closer to where she stood, not rushed, not loud. One of the children placed it gently, as if it had always belonged there. Another stood nearby, close enough to share the moment, far enough to respect her space. No one asked her name. No one asked why she was alone. They simply included her. Her body reacted before her mind did. Her shoulders stiffened, her breath caught, and her hands tightened around the cup she still held. Loneliness teaches people to prepare for rejection, not welcome. Being noticed felt dangerous. Her first thought was that this kindness must be a mistake, something that would be taken back once they realized she was not meant to be part of their circle. She sat slowly, every movement careful, as if sudden motion might break whatever fragile permission had been given. Her heart beat harder than it should have, and her thoughts raced ahead, searching for reasons to leave. Lonely people fear kindness more than rejection, because rejection is familiar. Kindness raises hope, and hope hurts when it leaves. Alara had learned long ago that kindness often came with conditions. It asked questions, expected story. Demanded explanations. This kindness asked for nothing. That made it harder to understand and harder to trust. She felt emotional tension build inside her, the pull between wanting to stay and needing to protect herself. From across the room, Daniel watched, his discomfort settling deep in his chest. He felt responsible for the moment unfolding, unsure if it was right or reckless. His instincts told him to step in, to manage the situation, to bring things back under control. Yet something stopped him. His children were calm, respectful, and present. There was no chaos, no risk, only connection. Daniel stood still, hands at his sides, wrestling with himself. He worried about boundaries, about expectations, about what might follow. At the same time, he felt something else, a quiet recognition. He saw how rare this moment was, how gently it had formed. Responsibility did not always mean stopping things. Sometimes it meant allowing them. Alara became aware of his presence then. She felt his eyes on the moment, not judging, not interrupting. There was concern there, but also restraint. That restraint mattered. It told her she was not a problem to solve or a situation to manage. She was simply a person being noticed. The children stayed close, not speaking, not performing kindness, just living it. One leaned slightly toward her, sharing space the way family does without thinking. Another smiled, small and honest, then looked away, giving her room to breathe. These gestures were simple, but they carried weight. Small gestures often break emotional walls because they feel real. Alara felt something soften inside her. The tight story she had carried, that she was invisible, beg, and to loosen. Being noticed unexpectedly did not erase her loneliness, but it cracked the shell around it. For the first time in a long while, she felt included without having to earn it. Daniel noticed the change in her posture, the way her hands relaxed, the way her breathing slowed. He saw his children doing what he could not, building a bridge without words. It challenged his belief that stability had to be controlled. This moment was unplanned, unmanaged, and yet it felt right. Around them, the room continued its noise and movement, unaware of the quiet shift happening in one small corner. No one clapped, no one announced it. Yet something important had changed. A woman who had learned to expect nothing was now part of something, even if only for a few minutes. Alara felt emotions rise that she had buried carefully over years. Hope, fear, gratitude, and grief all tangled together. Accepting this kindness meant accepting that she had wanted it all along. That truth felt heavy, but also honest. Accepting the gesture awakens feelings she worked hard to bury. Belonging feels risky when it has always been temporary. Alara sat in the chair they had made space for, her back straight, her hands folded carefully in her lap. She did not lean too far in or pull too far away. Every part of her stayed alert, as if comfort might suddenly be taken back. Being included felt warm, but warmth can disappear, and she had learned to be careful with it. She reminded herself not to settle too deeply, not to assume this moment meant more than it did. Inside her, two feelings moved at the same time. One wanted to relax, to breathe normally, to accept that she was welcome, at least for now. The other whispered warnings, reminding her how often comfort had ended without notice. She had sat in spaces before where she thought she belonged, only to realize later she was just passing through. That memory stayed close, shaping how she held herself now. The children made it easier without trying. They treated her presence as normal, not special, not temporary. One reached for a snack and offered it without looking up, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Another leaned back in their chair, feet swinging lightly, fully at ease. Their calm told her something important, that she did not need to perform or explain herself to stay. Alara noticed how her body slowly responded. Her shoulders lowered just a little, her breathing softened. These were small changes, but meaningful ones. Safety often begins quietly, not with big moments, but with the absence of fear. Sitting there, she felt less like a guest and more like someone allowed to stay. Daniel watched the scene with careful eyes. At first, he stayed guarded, still unsure how long this moment should last. But as he saw his children include her so naturally, something inside him shifted. He noticed how she listened more than she spoke, how she stayed present without asking for anything. Her quiet matched his own in ways he did not expect. He felt his emotional walls loosen slightly, not falling but bending. He realized that control had not created this sense of calm. It had arrived on its own, through small acts and shared space. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to simply observe without managing the outcome. The idea of family moved gently through the space between them, not the kind built by blood or history, but the kind formed by choice and care. No one named it, no one promised anything, yet something real was growing, built on staying instead of leaving, on noticing instead of ignoring. Alara felt that quiet shift too. She did not imagine a future or attach expectations, she only felt the present moment settling around her like a soft blanket. It scared her how much she wanted it to last. Wanting meant risking loss, and loss had shaped too much of her life already. She glanced at the children, then at Daniel, and felt a strange mix of gratitude and fear. Being chosen, even briefly, reminded her of everything she had missed. It also reminded her that she was still capable of feeling hope, even when it frightened her. As comfort slowly formed, another feeling grew beside it. Fear. Fear that this safety was fragile. Fear that once the night ended, so would the connection. She smiled softly, staying where she was, knowing that leaving early would hurt less, but choosing, just this once, to stay. Just as comfort begins to form, fear of loss grows stronger. Being seen means risking the pain of being left again. Alara felt it as the night moved forward, that quiet fear rising beneath the calm. Being seen, truly seen, had always been followed by loss in her life. People noticed her for a moment, then drifted away, sometimes slowly, sometimes without warning. Over time, she learned that disappearing first hurt less than being abandoned. Sitting there now, included and noticed, brought back memories she had taught herself to ignore. Daniel carried a similar history, even if it looked different on the surface. He had learned that when people leave, life does not pause. Children still need care, Homes still need order, and responsibilities do not soften for grief. Emotional abandonment had taught him to rely only on himself. Trusting someone to stay felt dangerous, because leaving had already proven to be easier for others. Both of them had survived by expecting disappearance. Alara stayed emotionally small, believing that if she did not matter too much, losing her would be easier for everyone. Daniel stayed emotionally distant, believing that if he did not lean on anyone, he would not fall when they were gone. These habits had protected them once. Now they quietly stood in the way. Staying felt more dangerous than leaving because staying asked something from them. It asked them to hope, to believe that this moment could last beyond the night. Leaving would have been simple. Alara could have stood up, smiled politely, and returned to her quiet corner. Daniel could have gathered his children and gone home early, returning to routine and control. Both options were familiar and safe, but the children remained steady, unaware of the fear building inside the adults. They stayed close, consistent in small ways. One rested against Alara's chair without thinking. Another tugged gently at Daniel's sleeve, grounding him in the present. Children offer emotional consistency without effort. They show up as they are, again and again, without pretending. That consistency unsettled both adults. Alara noticed how the children did not pull away, how they stayed even when there was nothing exciting happening. Daniel noticed how they trusted the moment, how they assumed people could stay without being forced. It challenged the stories both adults had built to survive. The tension stayed quiet. No one argued. No one cried. The fear lived in pauses, in the way Alara wondered how long she was allowed to sit there, and in the way Daniel wondered how long before something went wrong. Real fear often hides behind calm faces and careful words. Alara's thoughts returned to all the times she had been forgotten. She told herself not to want this too much. Wanting made leaving harder, yet the warmth of the moment made that resolve slip. She felt herself wanting to stay seen, even if it scared her. That want felt like weakness and courage at the same time. Daniel faced his own choice. He could step in and gently end the interaction, keeping things clean and controlled. Or he could allow the night to continue as it was, uncertain and open. Control had always felt like safety, but tonight it felt like distance. He realized that staying did not mean losing control. It meant trusting the moment. The room around them grew quieter as the event slowly wound down. Chairs were stacked, voices softened, and people began to leave. This natural ending forced the question neither adult wanted to answer. What happens after? Was this connection only meant for this space, or could it survive beyond it? Alara felt the urge to stand, to thank them and leave before the goodbye could hurt. Daniel felt the urge to rush his children along, to avoid awkward pauses or expectations. Both stood at the edge of old patterns, feeling how easy it would be to return to them. Then something small happened. One of the children reached out and took Alara's hand. Not tightly, not urgently, just enough to say stay. The moment was simple, but it carried weight. It asked both adults to choose differently, even if just for a moment. One moment forces both adults to face what they fear most. Being chosen quietly can change a life forever. Nothing was said out loud, yet a choice was being made. Alara stayed where she was, even as the room continued to empty. She did not rush to explain herself or look for permission. For once, she allowed the moment to exist without asking what it would become. Staying felt new. It felt like stepping into light without knowing how long it would last. Daniel felt the shift before he understood it. His children stayed close to Alara as if it was the most natural thing in the world. They did not look to him for approval. They trusted their feelings, and in doing so, they gently pushed him forward. For years he had taught them stability through routine. Now they were teaching him stability through presence. He noticed how calm the moment felt. There were no promises being made, no plans spoken, no expectations arming in the and yet it felt steady. This was different from the connections he had avoided in the past. There was no pressure to be more than he was. There was only the simple act of staying. Alara felt herself soften in small ways. She listened without preparing an exit. She met Daniel's eyes without looking away first. She allowed her emotions to sit near the surface instead of locking them away. Emotional presence had always scared her because it made loss feel closer. But tonight, presence felt like honesty, not danger. Trust did not arrive suddenly. It formed slowly in quiet moments, in the way no one rushed her, in the way Daniel did not ask questions she was not ready to answer, in the way the children stayed the same, warm and open, without changing their behavior. Trust built itself from consistency, not words. Daniel realized that stability did not mean control. It meant showing up the same way, again and again. He felt something inside him relax, something that had been tense for years. He did not feel responsible for fixing anything. He only felt responsible for not leaving when staying felt uncertain. Alara noticed this too. She had grown used to people pulling away when emotions became real. Daniel did not pull away. He stayed present, steady and kind without trying to impress her. That steadiness mattered more than any promise ever could. It told her she was not a temporary space filler. She was someone worth sitting beside. Hope began to form, carefully, like something fragile being held with both hands. Alara did not imagine a future, or ask for one. She only allowed herself to believe that this moment was real. That belief alone felt powerful. It reminded her that being chosen did not always come with loud declarations. Sometimes it came quietly, through staying. The children moved easily between them, laughing softly, asking small questions, grounding the moment in normal life. They were not trying to bring people together. They were simply being themselves. In doing so, they created a sense of family that did not need to be explained. Chosen family does not announce itself. It grows. Daniel felt a new kind of responsibility, not heavy, but meaningful. It was the responsibility of emotional honesty, of allowing his children to see him open, even just a little, of showing them that staying does not always lead to pain. Sometimes it leads to connection that heals old wounds. Alara felt a warmth she had not felt in years. Not excitement, not certainty, but belonging. It scared her how deeply it touched her. Belonging meant she could lose it, and yet she stayed. She stayed because leaving would mean returning to the belief that she was invisible. Staying meant choosing herself too. As the night came to a natural end, no one rushed. Goodbyes were gentle, unforced. There were no promises of tomorrow, no exchanged plans. And still, something had changed. Alara was not leaving as she had arrived. Daniel was not watching the moment end from behind emotional walls. Hope stood quietly between them, real and delicate. Hope appears, and with it, the fear of losing it. She was never invisible. She was just waiting to be seen. Alara noticed the change not in one big moment, but in the quiet pattern of days that followed. Consistency did something to her that kindness alone never could. The children waved when they saw her Aga in, not with surprise, but with comfort. Daniel greeted her the same way each time, steady and calm. Nothing dramatic happened, yet everything felt different. Being seen again and again slowly rewrote the story she had believed about herself. The children felt safe in ways that showed without words. They spoke freely, laughed easily, and stayed close without fear. Their emotional security filled the space around them, making it easier for others to breathe. Alara realized that their sense of safety did not come from perfect answers or controlled lives. It came from knowing that the people around them stayed, even when things were quiet or uncertain. Daniel was changing too. He listened more than he planned. He stayed present instead of preparing to leave. His guard did not fall all at once, but it lowered enough to let warmth through. He no longer believed that stability and connection had to stand apart. He saw now that emotional honesty did not weaken his role as a father. It strengthened it. Alara felt herself standing taller without trying. She no longer searched rooms for exits the moment she arrived. Her laughter came more easily, not loud but real. She allowed herself to take up space, even when no one asked her to. Being part of something steady reminded her that she had always deserved to belong. The idea of family settled around them naturally. It was not named or defined. It showed up in shared time, familiar routines, and unspoken care. Chosen family does not need permission. It forms when people decide again and again not to disappear. Alara felt the truth of that deeply. This connection was not loud or perfect, but it was real. There were still moments of fear. Old habits do not vanish easily. Sometimes Alara wondered how long this sense of belonging would last. Sometimes Daniel felt the urge to retreat into control. But now those thoughts passed more quickly. They had learned that fear did not always mean danger. Sometimes it only meant growth. The children remained the steady center. They trusted what they felt and followed it honestly. Their openness reminded both adults that connection does not need to be earned through pain. It can begin with noticing and grow through staying. They did not try to fix anyone. They simply made space, and that was enough. Life did not become simple or certain. Bills still needed paying. Days still brought stress. The future remained unclear. But something important had changed. Alara no longer carried the belief that she was invisible. She was seen in small, meaningful ways, and those ways mattered. She understood now that redemption does not always come through grand endings. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through consistency, presence, and chosen care. She had not been rescued. She had been recognized. And in that recognition, she found strength she did not know she still had. Life remains uncertain, but invisibility is no longer part of her story. If this story stayed with you, it means a part of you felt seen too. Stories like this grow only when you quietly support them, through a like, a share, or staying connected by subscribing. Someone else may need this story the same way Alara needed to be noticed. So tell me, have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people, and who finally saw you?